And it is 12 noon Eastern time on Friday afternoon. And you know what that means? It's time for another episode of the CVC Home Service Success Network. And this week, we have a very timely, very timely presentation for you because if you're anywhere within the continental United States on the news, you have heard about this disastrous horrific hurricane that has come through the southeast and has basically debilitated western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee, upstate of South Carolina, and on down all the way into Florida. And what's so unusual is hurricanes don't go into the mountains of North Carolina as a rule. This is something that is these people are totally unprepared for. And now we have people that are trapped. So before we get into this, I want to encourage you to consider donating to one of the relief organizations that's sending supplies up into the mountains. We have helicopters, we have planes, we have all kinds of relief supplies that are going up into the mountains of North Carolina right now. It's been going on for the last week. Locally, we have Operation Airdrop that is they have taken over 50 tons of survival food, survival supplies into the mountains of North Carolina this week. Okay. So anyway, today what we're going to talk about is what is your emergency plan for when these things happen? What's the emergency plan you have in effect for your business? Right before this broadcast, I was just on a call with one of my clients that is located in western North Carolina near Asheville, where the devastation is severe, but it's all over the mountains, and some of these are very remote areas. So what we just did was put together what is the action plan for the business to go forward. So I have as join us as a guest today, I have Lee Rolfe. And the reason I picked Lee to be on this broadcast is Lee lives in Houston, Texas. And the thing about Houston, Texas, when hurricanes come up the Gulf Coast, Houston is a place that could well be hit. So he's somebody that's very experienced with what it's like when a hurricane hits your market area and goes forward. So we're going to be relying on Lee to give us some of his personal advice in how do you navigate through this situation. Well, in my opinion, the first thing is you've got to make sure that your family is safe. You and your family are the first thing that's on your mind. Number two, you need to be checking to make sure everybody on your team has survived this storm. Are they in a damaged home? Has it wreaked havoc in their personal lives? Then you've got to check on your business. Has your business sustained damage? Lee recently went by and had a hurricane, and one of his loading dock doors was demolished. If I remember correctly, Lee, didn't that happen on the last hurricane you just went through?
Yep, two of the overhead doors totally collapsed in, so we had rain going around all over the warehouse.
Correct. You're also going to go through periods, and you need to understand this, that now credit cards aren't going to work at places. You're not going to be able to get the supplies that you need. Having available cash to do this, and we're going to talk about this as we go forward through this broadcast. What are the emergency plans now for your business? First thing you did, you check, are you okay? Is your family okay? Are you set up now with the supplies that you need? And you need to be thinking ahead. You need to have water at your house. You need to have emergency supplies. We all need to do that. So we're prepared for these disasters when they come through like this, because you never know when it's going to hit you. Then you got to check on your team members. Are they all okay? Have their homes been damaged in this? Are they displaced? Because I know Lee has had employees before that were displaced from a hurricane that actually they had to leave their home. And then is your business okay? But after you've done all these things, now it's time to get your business in order, because there's people out there that are going to need what you provide. Now, Cheryl and myself, we've been through two of these incidents. One was back in 1980s when Hurricane Hugo came through. There's nothing like laying in your bed at night and all of a sudden you hear the wind pick up and you hear the trees starting to fall and your whole family is getting up in the middle of the night, scared to death. The power's out. And then as daylight comes, you see that you're trapped. And in mine and Cheryl's history, when Hugo, we both went without power for several weeks. We lived at places that had to be cut out where you could even get out on the road, those type of things. And we had to get through emergency situations. We've also had a major flood in our home where we had 18 inches of water come into the lower level of home. And let me tell you something, it's really depressing to sit there and watch the water rising and know that it's slowly but surely coming into your house. And then when you see this is happening, these are the things that can happen to you at any point in your life. Floods are getting to be worse. We could say it's because of climate change, but also the drainage system doesn't handle the water that it used to. They're moving the floodplains. That's what happened at our house. We were not in the floodplain when this house was built, but they changed the floodplain. So Cheryl, what was it like when you went through Hugo? What did it feel like?
Well, we were without power for 13 days. The lucky thing for me is that was the years I was hanging wallpaper, so I had a generator. But just knowing that you can't get out, I was on the backside of a small country golf course. And so you can imagine how far it is to the backside of a golf course with no back exit. So we were some of the last people to get sold out. And you're scared. You don't know what to do. I was more comfortable because we had the pool. We could flush the commodes. We could do a lot of things. Drinking water was one of our big problems. But and then I had gas, and the gas stayed on for a good while. But the power, like I say, for 13 days. But, I almost feel guilty no more than what we suffered because I mean, you and I saw water slowly creeping up, but the people last week saw water coming at them like a wall. There was no escape. I mean, we were upstairs. We could get out of the water. Was it a mess? Yes. Even when it happened with us and Hugo, I didn't have water in my house. The trees messed the backyard up, but it missed our house totally. I felt really blessed then, even though we were some of the last to get power. But it brought our neighborhood together. And the way this is bringing people out of our state into Asheville. But unless you have rode that, you don't understand how it feels not to have any control. I'm pretty much of a control freak. So I had no control. And I think that was one of my biggest problems. I could control my box, but I couldn't control making sure everybody else was good. We used our generators to keep people's freezer going, but we became a neighborhood. That was the good thing that came out of it. And also the knowledge that the world's good. They will try to help when there's a catastrophe.
Okay, so that's good. And like I said, it's a really horrible feeling. Like I said, you were on a well. So when the power was out, that means you have no running water. Yeah, you got propane gas, so you were okay on that. But it was a terrible time. Lee, what's it like? I know there's been times that you've been marooned, that you couldn't get out of the neighborhood that you lived in. Your house wasn't flooded. But what's it like when you're trapped in like that?
If you're prepared, it's a lot better place. I mean, we do stuff like every time we go shopping, we buy a flat of water, we put it underneath a bed. Every bed has bottles of water underneath it. Every bed in our whole house. So stuff like that is prepare, because when we do it, I've been through so many hurricanes from 1986 when I was little all the way. We kind of know this stuff now. We know we're going to have no power. We know you need extra ice. We know we need coolers. We know we need water. You need to fill up all the bathtubs so you have a place so you can flush toilets. When you're prepared, as long as your house is still stable and everybody's good, even if you don't have power, it kind of sucks. It's hot. As long as you don't have medical issues, you can live through it. But preparation is key.
It is. It's preparation. And that's why this storm we're going through right now that we just encountered here is such an horrific storm. I mean, there's things you don't even think about. You may have a lot of canned goods up in your pantry, but most of us have electric can opener. So how are you going to I was thinking about this the other day. hey, there's a lot of canned food up there, but how will we get these cans open if we didn't have any power? These are all the things that you need to look at, emergency lighting. And you got to remember, likely you're going to be out of communication. Cell towers are going to go down. Internet's going to go down. It's going to be a communication nightmare. So anyway, this is kind of the experience. We've all been through this. We've all seen the damage. We've all had our lives wrecked by this. And so we know what it feels like, but not to the degree that we're watching this thing's going down. I mean, I'm seeing pictures of the mountains and roads I've been on. And when you see something about Chimney Rock and Lake Lure, I grew up in that area. And to see the devastation and how high this water got coming down the Hickory Nut Gorge, it's just unreal what these people are going through up there. So again, if you could donate to some of these relief efforts, I'm sure it will be much appreciated. These people are going to need help. This area is going to take years to rebuild. It's truly one of the most horrific situations I've ever seen in my life. But again, let's get to the subject matter that's here today. What is your emergency plan to get your business going again? What are you going to do? And that's why I wanted to bring Lee in. So Lee, what are some of the things that you would tell people that they need to be prepared to do when this strikes to get your business rolling? Because your phone is going to go crazy. You're actually staying very busy right now from the most recent hurricane that hit Houston. I forget how long ago it was just a matter of weeks or maybe a little over a month when y'all got this. So what do you tell people? How do you prepare for this?
Ideally, you have a way to answer the phones remotely out of your area. Because like us, we have Millie, she's answering phones from Orlando, Florida, and we didn't miss a beat. Even though we had no phones, we had no power, we had no nothing, we had someone to answer our phones. So if you could get dial pad or one of the, and I forgot there's a name for it, but the ways to get your phone over the internet where someone could answer in a different spot, that's ideal. Otherwise, you're just going to have a long time where you're just out of commission. You can't answer phones. Another thing we do, make sure that if scanners are going to be, as far as inside of chimneys, the chimney scanners are going to be very important after the storm. You need a way to run those without power. So you need a battery backup, some way. It can't just be plug in, or you need some way to plug it into your actual vehicle, because a lot of the vehicles now have plugs in them. So you need to have a game plan, because all your customers are not going to have power. And if you have to call around, we did this in our first hurricane in Ike. We had called every customer, and if they didn't have power, we had to reschedule them. And if they did have power, we could go. And we did that over, and moving appointments around, it's a pain, and people are desperate. So have battery backups for your equipment, have a way to actually get stuff done. Also, have a lot of tarps. Tarps are something that people will stand in line forever at Home Depot just to get them. And if you're pre-stocked with tarps, you can help people out by tarping chimneys. And insurance companies pay the tarping fees. And often they'll pay, I think during Ike, it was $1,600 a tarp, just to tarp off a chimney, just because it's limiting their damage as far as water damage. Another thing, we always, in our location, we try to stay in our warehouse with about a half a pallet of water. That's not only to help our employees if they need help, but when guys go out in the field, you can't assure that the convenience stores are going to be open, that they're going to be able to find water for hydration out in the field. So we always have a half a pallet, about of water, just so our guys are taken care of. We have so many different things. Another thing is you need to have a roll call. I got this from the military. You need to have a way to communicate so that you know everybody's okay. And they need to understand. We talk about it during in processing with new employees. What do we do during storms? And it needs to be, if someone says, are you okay? Or I need a roll call, or, that people let us know they're okay so that we can help people. Because for us, number one is, am I okay? My family okay? The next step is my employee and their families okay? And then we can take care of customers. It's like on planes, when the mask comes down, you need to put your mask on first before you help anybody else. Same thing goes with hurricanes. If your family is in trouble, you can't help anybody. You got to help yourself first. quick story. We had this was one of the hurricanes. We had one of our employees who they forced him to move out of his apartment complex. I mean, literally the cops made everybody move. And as soon as he moved out, someone kicked in his door and stole everything. So be prepared to try to help your own employees. Also, full tanks of gas. If you have gas cans, make sure all the gas cans are full because if there is no power, a lot of the gas things, even if they have gas, don't run. So you're trying to figure out, if we go to this, are we going to be able to find gas to get back? I mean, it's an issue, and fortunately, we literally have like an SOP for what we do during storms, and that's some of it.
And that's what this is all about today, Lee. I want people to put together, because you're going to be panic stricken when this happens. Like I said, I just got off a call from with a client in Western North Carolina. And that's what we went through, is his emergency action plan of what they're going to implement on Monday morning. One thing is, they have a person that's been relocated to South Carolina. So their phones are going to be answered remotely in South Carolina, where the office staff is. She actually lives in the storm area, but she evacuated out because of the devastation and got down into South Carolina. So they've got that covered. But Lee, you work on software. How do your guys operate? Because that's one of the questions this morning. How do the guys operate their software when the internet system is down in the community?
We use ServiceTitan. So I'm going to go over how I do it with ServiceTitan. Okay. And I think most CRMs have this. There's a report that you can have sent to you that has all your stuff. So if you had to work off paper, you could. I get that sent to me 3 times a week.
Okay.
And it's in my email. So I can open that up. And at that point, it's my whole schedule. It's everything I need so that we could do it manually. Also, at least ServiceTitan works without internet as long as you can download. Because after hurricanes for us, it's not that nobody has internet. It's you have to go certain places to get it. If there's a cell tower that's good, you could go to that place. In ServiceTitan, you can download your whole day, run your whole day without internet, and then go back to the internet spot, and it will upload everything you need into the system. So it works totally without internet as well as with internet. But number one, and this is a Brandy Biswell thing she taught me, make sure you have that report so that you could, if like the whole system went down, you could still operate by hand.
Yeah. Well, some of the things we talked about this morning was how are we going to answer the phone and take care of customers. And one of the things that I suggested this morning in the meeting was that we do not set appointments when people call in. We're going to be taking names, information. Do they have accessibility? Do they have power? And then we're going to assemble our priority list. And we're going to just have to tell people, we are overwhelmed. We're going to get you as soon as we can, but you've got to prioritize. And I suggest them that you set this up tomorrow. At the end of the day, we set up what our schedule is going to be tomorrow. It's going to be impossible to take care of the more important things that are going on during this situation. So you've got to get this organized before it gets overwhelming. You also have to prepare your office staff. If there's severe storm damage, your phones are going to quickly be overwhelmed. What's it like, Lee, right after the hurricane? What's it like from the phone input coming in, the intake side?
It's like someone drowning getting a ball of water. I mean, you almost have to, and you have to figure out you're not going to be able to help everybody. You're not. You can do the best you can. Our rule was we went ahead and scheduled them for the first available appointment, and the more important people we put on lists to move forward. Yeah. That's what we did. But you're going to see, for us, we see all the people waiting in the queue to talk to us. And at the end of the day, at 5 o'clock, there may be 25 people in that queue. So the answer is it's really hard. You're not going to be able to help everybody. You're trying to do the best you can with what you got. And then you have to be satisfied as you've done the best you can, because everybody's desperate. Everybody's going to call you and say they're desperate. Whether it's a small leak or their whole house is gone, everybody thinks it's the end of the world.
So, Lee, how do you maintain your sanity?
That's big. Me, I don't worry about me as much because I kind of figure it out. It's my employees. When they see all this and all the desperation and everything else, you kind of have to have a deep breath. We talk about mental health in meetings, just like you talk about burnout during winter and stuff like that. You talk about, hey, we are part of the solution. We did not make this happen when you go to these people's houses. We are there to help, but we did not destroy their house. We did not do anything else. You know, we can only do what we can do. Let's do the best we can with what we got, with what's in front of us. And then you have to sort of every night kind of mentally go to a different place and go to a different world to get away. Hopefully you're not coming home to the same stuff at your house. That's a problem.
Yes, it is, because you got to remember, you may have employees that don't have power. They may not have running water. You know, any of these things, the house may not have been destroyed. So, Cheryl, if you were working with one of these offices in this situation, what would you tell them? How do they handle this stress and not let it overwhelm them? What do? You've got a unique way of looking at human nature. So what's your advice in this situation?
The main thing, like Lee had said earlier, you have to let them know that they didn't cause the situation. They can be the cure for it, or at least the aid for it at this time. You've got to not look at the devastation. You've got to look at the problem, and you've got to solve one problem at the time. You can't make it all. I mean, like up there, trees are down everywhere. You can only cut one tree at a time. And that's what your employee's going to have to understand. And you're going to have to let them know that you're having to live that way too, that you would like to help everybody, but it's one person at a time and helping them the best you can. And if they start getting stressed, and you can see it coming, you can see it in their face, pull them off to the side for a few minutes. Let them sit there and catch their breath. It's kind of like you got to take care of yourself for a moment. I mean, they can't go home for a day, okay? But you can give them 5 minutes to back up, take a breath, talk it out just a minute. And I think that's the most important thing. A lot of times, if you just let them talk for a few minutes, let them tell what they're feeling, not listen to everyone else. Yes, you want to get all the calls, but that extra 5 minutes might help that employee help the next 20 people.
And
Yeah.
Jerry, one of the important things that I found too is ask them the last time they had a meal. Sometimes you get so frantic, you forget to take care of yourself. You're not sleeping right, you're not eating right, and suddenly they're sick, stuff like that. But have you eaten? Have you drank? You know, when's the last time you've taken a shower? You think that's funny, but if they don't have running water at their house, it's an issue. You have to make sure you take care of you first. Don't just always be the sacrificial lamb, like I'm doing all this. Take care of yourself first.
And you have to let your employees know that also.
Okay. And Lee, this is where leadership comes in, because I think this is one of the sides of leadership, to where you show concern for your people at this point. You have to be understanding. Now, someone just texted me a question, Lee, and he said, ask you the following questions. What do you do about payroll if you are shut down? Because he's trying to face this right now. He's had people that have now been out of work since last Friday. We're a week later. How do you handle the payroll situation for this downtime when people can't come to work?
We have always had an amount of money on the side, and it's after the fact. So we learned this the hard way. We now have an account with money in it. That's the emergency money. We can cover 2 or 3 payrolls in these situations. We also tell them that if you have internet, because what you'll find is some people have nothing and some people are perfectly fine, is train. Get online, take training classes. If we can't run jobs, make sure you train. But I've always paid my people during all this stuff every time, just because they need to take care of their families. So I never think of us as a family. I think of ourselves as a team. But if you're on my team, I'm going to take care of you the best I can.
And Lee, that is very admirable of what you're saying, but it also points out, which is one of the things you need. you need a reserve fund. You need money that is set aside for these situations. You're in Houston. You know you're probably going to go through one of these every year. It's going to be part. So what you've done, you factored this into your budget to build a reserve fund up to cover payroll during this down period. So, hey, man, I compliment you highly because that says a lot for you as a human being because there's nothing forcing you to do that. But these people, like I said, they're hurting. They are hurting. It's like these people up in North Carolina. FEMA is giving them $750. How far is that going to last in today's world? I mean, really, when you look at it, how far? We talked earlier about gas. This is going to be one of the problems. In a flooding area, gas is going to be contaminated if it's in a flood area and that gas is in the ground. Once it gets the water in it, they're going to have to pump that gas out. So knowing where the gas stations are, knowing where the passable roads are, again, looking at this present chaotic situation, we have major interstates. The major interstate going north out of Asheville, I-26, is knocked out in Erwin, Tennessee. If you go west out of Asheville towards Knoxville, Tennessee, there's 3 to 4 miles of road that are completely washed away. So it is a horrible, horrible situation. And we have so many people that are up in remote areas. Now, where you're at, Lee, you're in a very urban area. Houston is not rural, okay? If there's a rural area in Houston, I've never seen it yet. You got to get way out of town to find rural. But in the mountains of North Carolina, this is rural. We have people that have driveways that are up in the mountains. Basically, this is what's so terrible. Finding some of these people is going to be horrible up there. But this is what you got to gauge. If this happened in your market area, what would you do? Because people are going to be calling you and your phones are going to be buzzing. And if you don't have a system in place of how to handle this, it's one of the things about today's software. It's available via the cloud. Lee gave you one of the things. Millie that works for him, she is based in Orlando, Florida. So, you know, if Orlando gets hit with a hurricane, you're still good in Houston. And if Houston gets hit, she's still good there. So, Cheryl, what would be your closing thoughts on how to put together your emergency action plan for a natural disaster in a hurricane in your area? Excuse me.
My main thought, and I think Lee will agree with this, is to do it before the first one happens, if you're lucky. Look at what's going on with someone else. See what it would take, what you could have told them that it would take for you to be stable during that particular time, and then do it. I mean, you and I, we've been through the 2 hurricanes, and to be honest, we are not doing near as much as Lee. We don't have a water stock. So have we listened to what I'm sitting here saying? No, but I will let you know after this week, things will change here. Not that we don't have that many hurricanes. We're more into the tornado alley. So, which causes as much devastation just without the water. So the main thing is, I just want to tell everybody, keep these people in their thoughts. They're not the only people that have these, but at this point in time, they are. Be ready to help. Be ready to donate if you can possibly do it. And remember, it can always happen to you.
Correct. You know, it's under the present situation. Just imagine you go to a grocery store, the shelves are empty. The shelves are empty. I went to the grocery store this morning. The water here, there was only 2 packages of water in a big grocery store. This is going to be big up in Western North Carolina because Ingles Grocery Store, that's the major grocery store in Western North Carolina, their distribution center is knocked out. It's in black magic. It's not, you know, it is completely flooded, so it's not usable. So, Lee, what would be your final closing thoughts on this subject of how do you put together your emergency action plan?
Number one, I think, is communication. Because if you can't, one of the most stressful things for me is when you can't get a hold of an employee at all. You can't get to them. You can't talk to them. You have no clue. So communications are big. How you're going to communicate to let people know, hey, you need to check in every so often. You know, don't just turn your phone off. Batteries on phones, big deal too. I didn't talk about it. But if you don't have electricity and your phone battery goes dead, some people's world goes away. So having backup batteries, having the little battery packs, I know a lot of people use them when you travel, but charge all those bad boys up and take advantage of every single thing. If you see gas, get gas. But communication, make sure you're well prepared, make sure you have a game plan, because it's hard and it's not going to be perfect. Like, I mean, it's with the Mike Tyson thing. Everybody has a plan to get punched in the face. You can plan all day long, and every situation is different. Every storm's different. Whether it's Cat 4, Cat 1, it doesn't matter. You need to be prepared for all kinds of derivatives of all kinds of different situations, because every storm we have is totally different.
Yeah, it is. And one of the things that I suggested this morning in the meeting that we have, that at the end of every day, that the leadership team do a debriefing. What did we do right today? Where did we miss the mark today? What situations? This is going to be a fluid situation. You're going to be changing as you go through it, and it's going to be a very eye-opening experience if you've never been through it. So this could be earthquakes, it could be hurricanes, it could be tornadoes, it could be any type of natural event that is going to disrupt the life that you live, which has a capability. You have to guide your business, and you have to be a leader to your team through this period of time. Okay. So anyway, we appreciate that. Appreciate you joining us today. We hope this has been helpful to you. And I'm going to put one more plea out to you. The people of Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, upstate South Carolina, they have been debilitated. This storm damage goes all the way down into Florida. This is an historic storm that has never been seen to this degree before. And when you look at these pictures of the people that have been lost, it's unreal. The damage from this is going to be the largest damage we've ever seen. I think the death toll is going to be enormous when it's finally said, because it is such a sad situation up there. So we thank you for joining us today. We hope this has given you some ideas to put your emergency action plan together. And with that, we'll see you later. It's been an honor, a privilege, and a pleasure as always. And we'll see you next week on the next episode of the CVC Home Service Success Network. And Lee, I want to really appreciate you taking your time out today. I felt you would be a really good person to share your thoughts on this situation, because it's something you go through quite a bit down there in Houston, almost on an annual basis, it seems like. So we'll see you next week, folks. Appreciate you joining us as always.